Now, do you prefer Mr. Cunningham, Coach Cunningham, Coach Peter, Coach Pete, or do you have another nickname that you prefer?
Coach is fine. Like a physician being called doctor.
All right, Coach, you ready to get started? All right, for sure. Well, to get started, will you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Coach Peter Cunningham. I wrestled in high school at Tecumseh High School. I'm the coach at Detroit Mumford High School in Detroit, the only Detroit Public School League school with a team. I started the program 5 years ago. I guess it would have been 2014. I started the team, and in high school, I was a state qualifier and went on, didn't plan to wrestle in college, ended up doing 2 years of it. Kind of got the coaching bug from coming back and helping my brother's high school team, who the Tecumseh teams kind of got good when he was in high school. And
Okay.
it was fun. It was fun helping them and kind of got the coaching bug. I did sports writing journalism and sports writing out of college, but got pulled back into teaching and I've been doing that for 5 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what can you tell us about the history of high school wrestling in the DPSL, the Detroit Public School League? Was there ever a time, where wrestling as a sport was included in the DPSL, maybe back in the 50s, 60s, 20s? I'm not sure. Can you tell us anything about the history of wrestling in Detroit?
I wish I could, but I truly don't know. All I know is all I've heard is hearsay. And the journalist in me won't let me commit to the horror stories I've heard from people. Just say that I've heard negative stories from different people about their experiences trying to get started or what they've heard other people say. I won't repeat the hearsay, but let's just say that I don't know of anyone else doing it, but I don't exactly have a definitive history on it either. So maybe back in the day, but I couldn't tell you. I just know that when I tried to start it, there weren't any teams, and there still aren't any teams. And but on the positive side of things, everybody I asked, and although we competed in the Detroit Public School League, we were an EAA school at the time.
Okay.
Education Achievement Authority, and the people I dealt with directly all they gave me were yeses, and just tell us what you need and we'll try to figure it out. Now they couldn't always give me what I wanted, but they never said no, and that's pretty much how we got started.
Okay, now that leads into my next question. I was going to ask you, can you describe, the process that you went through? I mean, can you take us from your personal vision, into manifesting it, into, having a team right now? What was that process like for you?
Well, when I got into teaching, I knew that wrestling wasn't prominent in the city, but I guess I never even gave thought to the fact that it was actually, completely void. So I didn't realize that until I, got my job teaching. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted to eventually coach, but I thought I would probably take a few years and kind of get my teaching wheels spinning a little more. But then I had a student who had an ASICS bag on, and he was kind of one of those students who's probably your biggest headache. And for whatever reason, I saw his ASICS bag, and I'm like, I'll take a chance. I'll ask him if he likes wrestling or try to connect with him a little bit. And turns out, the reason he was maybe such a jerk, he was kind of wandering, because at his old school, he was a wrestler, and that was kind of his thing that kept him going. Not everyone was motivated to go to school right away as teenagers. And he had life kick him in the teeth a bunch of times, but wrestling was kind of the thing that kept him going. And then he moves to Detroit, back home with his grandparents near our school, and then all of a sudden that one thing that had helped him was gone. And I'm like, tell you what, I'll see if we can figure out getting you to some practices, because I just knew coaches in the area. I'll drive you to practices, that sort of thing. And that just evolved into me figuring out what it would take to get a team going and getting registered with the MHSAA. And so by the end of that year, 2014, we had him. I forget if that was the 15 postseason. Like I said, the years kind of blend. I think, yeah, that was 2014, 15. He competed in the districts, and then after that, and I had a few other guys go to practices and stuff at different gyms around us, like U of D Jesuit, Jalen Rose Academy, Birmingham Groves. That's the beauty of wrestling. These guys, their doors are wide open. They're like, oh yeah, bring them by, and we'll figure it out.
Right.
And so we did that for a season, and then kind of got it going the next year in terms of having our own team and our own mats and our own room and stuff.
That's awesome. So moving forward, I just wanted to ask you, are you aware that Highland Park has Silverback Academy? It's a highly respected, My Way youth wrestling program, and they've produced a lot of very, very talented wrestlers. Recently, they helped contribute to developing Josh Edmond, who's ranked number 1 in Division I high school right now with DCC. Now, have you ever thought about potentially reaching out to their staff and maybe creating a situation where it could be almost like a feeder school for your Mumford program, much the same way a lot of the suburban high schools, a lot of them have kind of like feeder situations with the wrestling clubs. Have you ever thought about that? And is that something that you would consider, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I'm well aware of Silverback with all the talent they've had over the years. A lot of those guys who were Highland Park success stories, if you kind of do the old Mighty Ducks thing where you redraw the districts, and if you look at those Silverbacks, a lot of them are in Mumford district. So if everything was all going well, if the city actually had wrestling at all the high schools and stuff, who knows how much of those Highland Park kids would have ended up being Mumford kids, and how much we could have just built on each other, if Highland Park was going at the same time that Mumford was going. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but a couple of our guys, Camonte Simmons, who is our all-state guy, he was a Silverbacks guy. Our current regional qualifier going for states this year, Kobe Caldwell, he's Silverbacks, and he's taken a few of his teammates over to their workouts here and there.
Nice.
And we've got another guy in the gym. His name's Chris Johnson. He's a Silverbacks guy, and you can tell just his day one was a little different than my other guys who come in their day one. He says, oh, yeah, I'm just coming out for the team. And then you see him, and you're like, hold on a minute, man. You've been doing this somewhere. You can see he's got a pedigree. He's got some training because, you can just see Coach Washington's training on these guys. I mean, they got great hips. They know exactly when to throw. And great back arches. And, to answer the other part of your question about partnership and whatnot, me and Coach Washington were on the phone. He recently took a job, another high school job, but, we were on the phone talking about something that might happen in the springs, maybe in the springs coming up, where guys have something to do.
Okay.
Just down the road, because I think he trains his club, just down the street from our school. So
right.
It'd be a natural sort of progression. So hopefully there'll be some sort of formal, I don't know if you want to call it formal partnership. I don't know if you can technically have a formal partnership like that, but at least have the option out there where guys are able to just hop on a quick bus and get to a practice, as opposed to right now. We've got to coordinate ways that they can get out to Sterling Heights or get to Southfield or something. It'd be pretty cool if they could just get on a bus and be practicing with some of the best guys in the state. Who wouldn't want that? And then hopefully some of those guys who are, their families are making them drive out to the suburban schools or to Southfield or other places, and that's a burden on their families. Maybe they end up going to Mumford in the future now that we have a program kind of rolling. Now, I don't think our school academically is where those other schools are right now, but so I would never say to a kid like, hey, you should come to Mumford instead, if they have the option to go to some of these better schools. But if it's a true burden on their family, we can make it work at Mumford. And and then hopefully our academics and the expectations in the building and that sort of thing and across the district can make it so it's a viable option for families.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very respectable reply, Definitely. I really hope that things progress in the direction that you mentioned that maybe things could. So, but moving on. What would you say to educate citizens in the community of Detroit that might not know much about wrestling, and maybe some of them look at it on the surface as only a violent combat sport that maybe they don't want their kids introduced to? What would you say to them to sort of educate them about the value and the benefit that come along with the hard work and dedication that it takes to become a good wrestler?
Well, I would just say before writing it off as too violent or too tough or too anything is to get in there and get firsthand experience. Like I said about the rumors I'd heard about other people talking about their efforts to start programs. There's a lot of negative hearsay I heard in there. One of them being that people were saying, oh, it's too violent to be in the city and the city already has enough problems, that sort of thing. Well, just give it a shot before you write it off and talk to the people who have benefited greatly from it.